Fox News avoids what could have been weeks more of embarrassing coverage by settling at the last minute with Dominion. We're going to break down the terms of this historic deal and explain the other legal issues looming for the network.
Let me just say, though, the obvious right here. It was the worst of all worlds for Fox News. I know a lot of people wanted to see all the dirty laundry put out.
A lot of it was out.
Well, it was already out. And there's going to be more because there are more of these lawsuits. I mean, coming, as Michelle Goldberg wrote this morning in the New York Times, part of Fox's sinister on-air brilliance was weighed in cases its audience in a comprehensive alternative reality. But now, for once, the network would be forced to account for itself outside the right-wing bubble. How it would possibly do that was a matter of great suspense, but they settled. But as she said, Smartmatic is suing Fox for $2.7 billion. Reality is not done with Murdoch and the rest of them. And I've just got to say, and just really quickly, I just want to jump to you really quickly, Danny, because I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday. The news broke. They go, "Oh my God, this is so horrible!" And how could they? I said, "No, it's horrible. We're not going to, get this trial. There is no justice done." I said, "No," and I just got to be blunt. I hate to say it. This is what happens when you've got a 93-year-old man running a company and everybody's just a yes man to him, because I can't believe Murdoch 20 years ago wouldn't have settled this months ago. And when I say this is the worst of all worlds, you settle these things early if you're Fox or if you're another business so you don't humiliate everybody at the network. Yeah. Oh, they did that. They said, we're going to be stubborn. We're going to humiliate all of our anchors. We're going to humiliate all of our executives. We're going to humiliate everybody that works at this network. And we're going to fight a case that we know we're going to lose because we're stubborn and we think we can get away with it. And then at the last second, they pay $800 billion. $800 million. $800 million. So they have the worst of both worlds now, and they've got another suit coming.
Yeah, this case was always going to settle. And a lot of folks said, well, is it surprising that we're even talking settlement now that we've gotten to trial? It's completely not surprising. That happens all the time in civil cases. And in fact, insurance companies and defendants are known for waiting until the courthouse steps, till the day of trial, till jury selection to finally come to the table and settle. But that's in the ordinary, let's say, a motor vehicle accident case where the whole world isn't watching. And that makes some economic sense because those insurance companies, they hold on to that money as long as they can. They invest it, whatever the case may be. This is not that case. This is a case where the bloodletting happened for Fox all along the way. They should have raced early and often to the plaintiffs to settle the case. Now, in reality, probably it's the case that the plaintiffs knew that. And maybe there were overtures early on, and the plaintiff said, you know what, we feel really good about our chances. We're going to trial. And by the way, that is a negotiation strategy for plaintiffs. I do it myself. You wait until trial to raise the stakes. And I promise you that whatever Fox ended up settling for, I bet that was already offered. It's something they may have rejected earlier on, and it cost really, them more money later.
There was no way Murdoch was ever going to take the stand. We knew this case legally was a slam dunk. The judge had basically already said it. And by the way, for people who don't know, this is one of the hardest cases, civil cases, to prove. This is almost unprecedented.
You have to prove actual malice. And clearly Fox thought that's where this was headed. You don't settle for almost $1 billion if you think you have a shot at winning the case. And it raises the question, Danny, of what Joe mentioned. This next lawsuit, Smartmatic suing for $1 billion more than Dominion was suing, $2.7 billion. So if, as the judge in this Dominion case said, it is crystal clear because of the evidence we've all seen that Fox hosts lied knowingly about this conspiracy theory, what does Fox do with this next lawsuit? Are they smarter this time? Do they go ahead and just settle before all the dirty laundry is out again?
Yeah, you have some really compelling language from a judge. And you mentioned the elements of defamation. In this case, one of those elements was already deemed satisfied by the judge. That's something that almost never happens. Plaintiffs don't normally win on summary judgment. And in this case, there are really two major elements of defamation. Was it false? And what did the defendant do? Did they ignore it? Did they know it? Were they reckless? That first element, the falsity, was established going into trial. Now, does that help Smartmatic?
Can you underline really quickly, and this is a personal note for me, for 20 years, I've called different lawyers. I said, this person's accusing me of being a murderer. That person, and Meeks has been there for a lot of it. I want to sue him. Oh, no, what do you mean? I can't sue them. They go, you've got to prove actual malice. I said, it's obvious. They know I didn't. Oh, but you don't know what's in there. So I've learned, unfortunately, the hard way over 20 years, defamation, almost impossible to prove. And yet Fox, what they did after the election, so egregious that this was a slam dunk. In a type of case, I just want to underline for everybody at home, it's almost impossible, I found out the hard way, to take to court and win.
Yeah, most defamation cases are almost impossible to win for a number of reasons. Number one, they're expensive to prove. You have to prove economically that you were harmed by this statement. And secondly, normally the people who say this don't have any money to pay a judgment. Normally, someone who's saying awful things about you online or wherever, they live in their mom's basement. They don't have any assets to satisfy a judgment. This is the rare case where you have some strong evidence of falsity, strong evidence that people knew it was false, and massively deep pockets in order to pay a judgment. But I'll tell you what, Joe, because you didn't call me about these defamation cases.
Right.
I would have told you most lawyers try to dissuade people from taking on defamation cases.
Lawyers.
They really do. And I'll give you the inside. They usually do that because lawyers don't want to take on the risk of having to pay in a contingent fee arrangement where they have to front the costs. They don't want to have to pay to try and prove a defamation case because the risk is too high. They like the sure thing. And so I'm not surprised most lawyers end up dissuading people from bringing defamation
And by the
cases.
way, I would call people and say, who's the best defamation lawyer in America? I'd call the best defamation lawyer in America who won these big cases. Oh, no, it's too hard to. Yeah. I'm like, you're a defamation lawyer,
This is
dude.
what you do.
Why don't you do
Because they're waiting for the
falls?
They're waiting for the perfect
this case.
And this is that perfect. Everyone's been waiting. Lawyers.
This was, for lawyers, the perfect defamation case.
Yes.
It was. I mean, and they had thousands upon thousands of pages of documents that they could point to of this. They were able to seemingly the actual malice. They felt fairly confident in that. And I know, yes, there were a lot of people, to Joe's point, who were disappointed that we didn't get a trial, that Fox News did not have to deliver on-air apologies, that anchors haven't had to say, you know, we misled you because of X or Y. But there could be a chilling fact going forward. So tell us a little more about, if you would, the Smartmatic, which is the other case. Give us a sense. It's in New York, so it's a little, maybe perhaps a little more difficult than Delaware, I believe experts have said to do. Give us the timeline. What should we expect there?
Yeah, New York law doesn't provide for a newsworthiness type defense. And of course, Smartmatic is bringing a very similar claim against Fox News. And now they're only emboldened by this settlement. Right. I mean, yes, nothing in the settlement is preclusive. In other words, none of the facts will really apply to Smartmatic, but it signals to Smartmatic that, hey, this is a defendant who's willing to settle a case, and not just settle it for a lot of money. Keep in mind also that the reason we know about $700 million in settlement, believe me, that was a point that was negotiated, and I bet it actually cost money. In other words, the plaintiff said, we want to publicize this. You know what? Frankly, if I'm the plaintiff's lawyers, I don't really care about an admission of liability. I care about the money. And the money, if I'm able to publicize that settlement amount, that is a tremendous trophy to put on your wall.
It speaks volumes.
And I bet it costs them money.